What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through. Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind.
Okay, we are good to go.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Glad you could join us this evening. Tonight, we got Dave, Alex, Dan, and myself. And I'll be taking you through a couple of news articles this evening. And then Dave's going to touch on some stuff that we're working on. And then, obviously, anything else from anybody. And then feel free, guys, if you've got questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Just let us know so we can kind of respond to those. But we'll go ahead and get started. So let me see here. Let's grab a window and see if I can grab this. We'll go ahead and share this. So this is coming from U.S. News. Mystery drones swarm Air Force Base for 17 days, leaving the Pentagon baffled. So this actually happened several months ago. Well, more than several months ago. This happened back in December. So they say top security officials in the U.S. remain stumped after an unknown fleet of drones breached restricted military airspace for 17 straight days last December. A new report, first detailed by the Wall Street Journal, says military personnel reported witnessing the mysterious fleet over a stretch of land at Langley Air Force Base along Virginia's shore. The drones would appear in the sky for about 45 minutes to an hour after sunset each night. Former Air Force General Mark Kelly was the first made aware of the drone sightings in December 2023, the outlet reports. They showed up for 17 consecutive days, with officials at the Pentagon suspecting they may have been deployed by Chinese or Russian agents to spy on the American military. But because the drones did not pose an imminent threat, the officials at the time weren't certain if they were being used for nefarious purposes or perhaps it was just wayward hobbyists. The military was prohibited from shooting them down, citing potential risks to troops and civilians.
Boy, 17 days in a row is plenty of time to track down who's flying them and where they're
One would imagine, right?
Maybe after the third or fourth day, it's like, maybe we should follow these to see where they land.
Especially going over Langley. Like, hello. So the White House met with the Defense Department, the FBI, and the Pentagon's UFO office, as well as outside experts to discuss what to do about the mystery formations, but several solutions, including shooting nets to catch the drones and using electronic signals to jam their navigation, also did not make the cut. So, according to the Wall Street Journal, the phalanx of drones flew in a precise pattern along the same route each night. Kelly described the first drone he saw as roughly 20 feet long. Wow, that's big. And flying at more
so they
than
don't have remote ID then, eh?
100 kilometers an hour at an altitude of roughly 3,000 to 4,000 feet.
Okay,
Kelly
so
said
this isn't like a Phantom, DJI Phantom just hanging out.
No.
Wow. That's 100 kilometers per hour? I've thought that 100 miles per hour.
100
from,
kilometers.
Other sources.
Oh, yeah, 100
the
kilometers.
The Journal article, everything else has 100 miles per hour.
It's only like 62 miles per hour if that's the case. That's no big deal.
So somewhere between 62 to 100 miles per hour. Let's go with that. Kelly said as many of a dozen more drones followed behind and said the drones looked like constellations in the night sky. It was such an alarming breach that Langley officials canceled their nighttime training mission and moved their F-22 fighter jets to another base. According to Fox News, 2 months before the fleet emerged over Langley, 5 mysterious drones reportedly breached restricted airspace over a government nuclear weapons experiment site in Nevada. The outlet reports that 4 of the drones were detected by the Energy Department's Nevada National Security site outside of Las Vegas, while the 5th was spotted by employees. The Defense Department has yet to publicly state who is behind these drones. According to the FAA, reports of unmanned aircraft sightings from pilots, citizens, and law enforcement remain high. The agency wants to send out a clear message that operating drones around airplanes, helicopters, and airports is dangerous and illegal. Unauthorized operators may be subject to stiff fines. Apparently, if you can find them, somewhere between 17 days, including possible jail time, the website states. So, yeah.
This
That
doesn't pass a sniff test for me.
It doesn't
Not
add
really,
up at all.
no.
It,
The
it
size,
really
the
doesn't.
height,
I mean, the first is they reference a Wall Street Journal publication. So I canceled my Wall Street Journal subscription the day that Rupert Murdoch purchased the Wall Street Journal. So the Wall Street Journal is, the parent company. Murdoch also owns, wait for it, Fox News. So, I've only heard this story from the Wall Street Journal. And the fact that this was happening over Langley and they didn't blast it out of the sky, this doesn't play. And so I remember a young employee worked with us. He had a summer job at the NSA, and he said the fascinating thing with a top secret clearance working at the NSA is you see in the newspapers about 5% of what's going on. So this just I struggle with this one. This is like I can't believe that they would let this happen over Langley. And public service announcement. Don't, as Greg Revenue would say, don't be that guy. Don't ever do this. Don't ever fly over a military base. A fine will be only the beginning of your issues.
Yeah, definitely.
I read the Wall Street Journal's article, and some of the things that were in it that I noticed that were interesting, at least, were like at least also covered in this one was the size of the drones. And then also saying how they were sporadically popping up around the military or around Langley. It sounds very similar to stuff that I've heard at normal airports where their drone detection system sees, there's a drone that went up, or at stadium TFRs, there's a drone that goes up in the TFR and then pops back down. But they're able to find those, and they've been able to find those pretty easily.
Right.
And it seems like it's something that's been happening across the country, but they're only highlighting it because this is a military base. And I wonder if it also has to do with the Countering CCP Drones Act and if it has anything to do with that cycle in Congress hey, this is something that has been happening, but right now they're putting it out when they know that this language is trying to be put in to restrict drones a bit. Another thing that was mentioned in the Wall Street Journal article was one of the drones they mentioned was a 20-pound commercial quadcopter. And in this area, there's a company called DroneUp that flies a similar drone. That's a commercial drone around that same size. That maybe they misjudged distance, which I'm guessing there are a couple of observations are probably off, either altitude estimations or size estimations, because those numbers don't really sound too realistic to me. But like DroneUp has a very similar drone to what some of the stuff that they were describing was, and they're right next door. So maybe it's just a misidentification.
Yeah, right. And I cannot believe that DroneUp would ever fly over Langley.
Agreed. I don't think they would. That's why I think it's a misobservation.
Agreed. Unless DroneUp explicitly had approval.
And I'm not gonna, I'm gonna kind of highlight that same thing too. And not that General Mark Kelly is not adept at identifying aircraft, but if you're trying to identify something 3,000 to 4,000 feet in the air, going 100 kilometers or 100 miles per hour through the sky, and you're trying to make an estimate on its size, like all of that just seems pretty rough, right? I mean,
And this is the same General Kelly that was the chief of staff in the previous administration.
yeah, I'm not
This
sure,
is a
but
very, very high rank. It's just this, for a general to be quoted.
I'm not calling, I'm not calling into question the general, but I'm
No,
just
nor
saying
am
it's
I. I
very
mean,
hard to identify something
this is a
at
man of
those
very,
distances.
very high integrity. Yeah, so I'm suggesting that he was misquoted.
So,
The,
at any rate, go ahead, Alex.
I was just going to add another part of the original article from the journal was they included a picture of some lights in the sky and of an aircraft, but that picture of the aircraft that they showed looks very similar to just a private pilot general aviation small scale aircraft, like similar to Cessna style, or because the tail was clear as day in that picture, and like that's very general aviation, small scale private pilot. And not saying that anyone actually flew into it, but probably just another misobservation. That size and scale, I could see that misobservation at those altitudes, saying, "Oh, this is a drone with 20 feet long wingspan. Maybe they're getting the height right, but the size wrong."
Right.
And confusing 100%. That. So it's like, yeah, it's just some of those things that something's
just kind of goofy. Just goofy. It's goofy. All right, moving on. So we've got the Pentagon's. Let me clear some ads here because thanks to ads by Google here. Pentagon's Replicator 2 to focus on drone defense. So the Pentagon's next phase of its innovative Replicator initiative will focus on countering small drones at military installations across the globe. Maybe like Langley? Just a thought. The department announced Monday. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced the Replicator 2 effort in a September 27th memo tasking Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks and Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Navy Admiral, boy, you've got a long title, sir, Christopher Grady, with overseeing the development of the plan. The plan will be part of the fiscal 2026 defense budget request, according to the memo. The department has been clear about applying Replicator's focus to other capability areas, and the department has been working for several months to assess validated joint capability gaps to determine where the Replicator process can provide the greatest value against our most urgent needs. As a result of that assessment, I've determined that Replicator 2 will tackle the warfighter priority of countering the threat posed by small uncrewed aerial systems to our most critical installations and force concentrations. I'm confident the Replicator initiative will complement and advance the significant CUAS work already underway in the DoD. Lloyd said he expects Replicator 2 to deliver enhanced protection against small uncrewed aerial systems within 24 months of Congress greenlighting the necessary funding. Given the timeline, defense officials have until the end of 2024 to finalize a plan, but whether funding for the initiative is included in the 2026 President's budget request and even the initiative's future will depend on who occupies the White House next year. So Austin said the department is still on track to meet the fielding goal of Replicator by the August 2025 deadline. The Defense Department secured about $500 million for Replicator in 2024 and requested the same amount for fiscal 2025. So I'm going to say that this is probably in direct response to what's going on in different parts of the world right now. Mainly, I would say Ukraine and possibly a little bit over in Israel. But I mean, we've all seen it in the news, and as much as we want to say that drones are a great technology, for me personally, seeing them used in the way they're being used right now is, I don't feel the highest about it. But at the same time, I understand, what's going on and the way the technology operates and how it can be used that way. So, to be able to defend it against threats like that, I mean, I feel like probably a good take, but thoughts, guys?
Yeah, to me, several thoughts. First, it feels like this is an in-theater DoD initiative. So not inside the United States national airspace, but likely a defensive weapon outside in a combat theater. And if that's the case, then of course, any of the regs that we worry about with respect to FAA they
Don't apply.
don't apply whatsoever.
Mhm.
If there is an aspect, or if there is a trickle down into uh, utilization of the same technology into counter UAS within the USA confines and in the national airspace, we've got a couple of contacts. One, Rob, within our own team with FPVFC, as well as Tom, a recent addition to Drone Advisory Council, who works in the counter UAS industry. Today, as everyone knows here, shooting a drone out of the sky is a felony, and only a federal agency can be authorized to take counter UAS initiative. So this is something we watch carefully, and we will continue to So it's what are the regulations? What's going to change? And there certainly has been proposed legislation in the federal Congress that would allow local public safety personnel to utilize counter UAS. And so you would imagine that potentially it could be utilizing this technology if it were to be deployed within the NAS. So we've got good contacts and good pluses and minuses. Training becomes a real complexity. And so this would be expensive to deploy. We'll see how things go. We'll keep an eye on it. So it's to me as a geek engineer, I'm delighted that this type of technology is being investigated for the defense of our own troops. That to me is great. And so we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see what happens.
All right. So on that same note, I don't think we've had Red Cat in the news for a while, but Red Cat, a drone technology company building its hardware and software for military, federal, and commercial operations, today introduced its Arachnid family of unmanned intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance and precision strike systems. Red Cat unveiled the family of systems at AUSA 2024 annual meeting and exposition in Washington, D.C. The Arachnid family of systems is purpose-built for the U.S. Army to roadmap to integrate UAS and long-endurance aircraft in a combined arms fight with synchronized fire and maneuver across various command levels. Red Cat currently addresses the need of warfighters at the platoon and company level with drones that span capability and endurance for short and medium range operations in the air, land, and maritime environments. But future potential partnerships will enable long-range reconnaissance. So let's see. U.S. Army has prioritized integrating UAS across military formations from squad to corps and have specific requirements informed by an understanding of emerging real-world threats, said Jeff Thompson. We are introducing the Arachnid family of systems to ensure we can react to the rapidly evolving needs of SUAS for short, medium, and long-range operations. So they have a couple new pieces of tech here. One is the Black Widow, which is going to be the successor to Teal 2. Is a highly capable rucksack portable SUAS designed specifically for operation in electronic warfare environments. A fully modular architecture enables swift adaptation to mission requirements, including short-range reconnaissance and secondary payload operations. Black Widow is significantly enhanced from the Teal 2 model with longer endurance, electronic warfare resilience, and advanced autonomy. And then they are introducing Webb, which is the Warfighter Electronic Bridge, as a ground control station purpose-built to operate Red Cat's entire Arachnid family of systems for military operations. So, and then let's see. We also have medium-range reconnaissance and persistent strike systems. Red Cat is accelerating the development of its FANG line of first-person view drones. Additionally, Red Cat's product roadmap includes, I'm going to say Tricon, which will build upon the FlightWave Edge 130, a military-grade VTOL tricopter for medium-range mapping, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance.
Have we seen what a Fang FPV drone looks like from them at all? Is there any
I have
information
not.
on that?
Let's see. Fang FPV drone.
Looks like you viewed this press release before. It's
I
listed
must
there.
have. Listed, but no pictures. Let's see. Family of systems. Okay, here we go. We got the arachnid. Oh, here we go. There's a tiny picture there. Let's see if we got Fang. Under development.
Is that a steel one?
What is
you know,
that?
It looks like the Rotorite CL1 frame.
It does have a Rotor Riot logo underneath the battery pad on there if you look really close.
all right, zooming in.
Enhance.
Enhance, right?
I'm pretty sure like my frame has that Rotor Riot logo right there, but maybe it's not, but it looks really similar to that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we've got the Tricon medium range, looks like a VTOL, and then we've got the Black Widow here, short range reconnaissance, and then Fang, and then there's your control station, the Web. So going all in on the spider analogies here.
Yeah. And so because the word arachnid is in all caps, it means it's an acronym. So they must have a word behind each letter. I can't wait to find that.
Let's see if they do. Arachnid. It doesn't say anything, but who knows?
So it's U.S. company. Teal company is solid, small company out in the Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
And they've captured a couple of military contracts. So good on them. And
Definitely interesting.
Yep.
All right. So, all right. U.S. Custom halts some drone imports from Chinese manufacturer DJI. And this is coming from DJI. So the U.S. government is stopping imports of some DJI drones from entering the U.S., the Chinese drone maker told Reuters on Wednesday. In a previously unreported letter seen by Reuters, DJI notified distributors that U.S. Customs and Border Protection is citing the Uyghur Forced Labor Protection Act and withholding some drones from being imported into the U.S. DJI, which sells more than half of all drones in the U.S., said no forced labor is involved at any stage of its manufacturing process. It told Reuters it was providing customs with documentation varying its compliance with the UFLPA. DJI said in his letter that the action appeared to be part of a broader initiative by the Department of Homeland Security to scrutinize the origin of products, particularly in the case of Chinese-made drones. The letter called the claims unsubstantiated and categorically false, but the law gives them the authority to withhold goods without any tangible evidence. U.S. action. Last month, the Commerce Department said it was seeking comments on whether to impose restrictions on Chinese drones that it would effectively ban them in the U.S., similar to proposed restrictions on Chinese vehicles. We're looking at drones that have Chinese and Russian equipment, chips, and software in them. U.S. Customs and Border Protection did not respond immediately. So,
this is important in that they're using another law and another part of the federal government to give DJI a hard time. So this is up against the problems, the significant and serious problems we have with China utilizing and exploiting and discriminating ruthlessly against the Uyghur population. So, but to use yet another part of the U.S. government to give DJI a hard time.
It's exactly why we try to fight against poorly written regulations and laws, because they get used when they shouldn't, like this, but because they're written somewhat vaguely or open-ended or up to interpretation, like they can be used for strong arming or to bully another company or person or whatever.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's commerce. So it's commerce that lays in the designation of all the components. So this is the mechanism by which bans can be executed against a single company. Very, very frustrating.
Very. So, all right. So I got two more. These are I don't know whether to call it a satire or not, but it's obviously not. But I really want it to be. So this is from back in September a little bit. So it's not too terribly old, but I hadn't seen this article before.
I like how
Whitehall Police.
it was posted on September 20th, but it was updated on September 19th.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
It was updated the day before it was posted. Or after,
Excellent.
yeah, whatever.
Must be a time zone thing.
All right.
Updated in New York.
So Whitehall Police, this comes from Whitehall, Ohio, hope to purchase a $49,000 drone to assist first responders. And so the $49,000 price tag is kind of what caught my attention, because we've talked recently about how American-made drones that are seeking to replace DJI, especially when it comes to public safety and government contracts, are hugely overpriced. So I was like, yeah, let's see what this has. So Whitehall Police are seeking city approval to purchase a $49,000 drone to assist first responders. Chief Mike Crispin said he's optimistic about the idea, adding it could be used to provide fast intel to first responders and dispatchers, help with search and recovery missions, provide surveillance for SWAT missions, and help with overhead videography of incidents. Due to the successes of other agencies, I'm convinced this will be a tremendous asset for the city of Whitehall and provide a safer environment for our officers. The second reading of the ordinance took place on September 17th council meeting, but was not discussed further. However, some city council members voiced concerns at a September 10th committee meeting. Council members asked questions about its functions and logistics and were told these would be answered during a live demonstration. Now, here's where it gets a little weird. Council members were also told Crispin would attend the September 17th meeting and be available to answer questions relating to the drone. However, there was no discussion, and Crispin told NBC4 he was not present for the portion of the meeting where the drone was mentioned. The demonstration in question would provide an in-person visual aid to help citizens and city officials understand the potential of a drone as a first responder. However, council members with questions were told a live demonstration could only take place after entering into the agreement and paying the $49,000 associated cost.
Pay first, ask questions later?
Yeah, that's where it gets a little weird, right? So Whitehall Police are considering a partnership with Paladin, a Texas-based company that supplies autonomous drones to assist first responders. The $49,000 price tag accompanies Paladin's advanced package, described as an all-inclusive annual subscription that includes equipment, setup, training, maintenance, and other operating needs. So it's kind of like a full service. So it seems a little weird. So I went to go look up Paladin, and because I can't, when I see something weird, I'm just going to go for it. So they offer, it seems like that they offer the drone, the software, the data management, as well as any waivers from the FAA on behalf of your department. So they're offering the full solution. It seems like they are not offering the pilots, but I mean, $49,000 is a fairly hefty toll, I feel like. And how many drones are you getting? Are you getting one for that price?
What happens if you click book a demo?
What's that?
What happens if you click book a demo?
Let's see. You just have to put in your name.
Yeah, don't do it. They'll bill us $49,000.
So I'm not I guess pooping on Paladin here, but it just seems a little weird to me. I mean, to me, if I were operating a drone as a first responder, and I'm sure Rob could speak to this a little better, he's got extensive experience with this. I'd want to own the drones and integrate them into my infrastructure, right? I guess, being able to get waivers on the drop of a hat would be fantastic, but just seems a little weird. And they're operating DJI drones, which
DJI
could
M30
quickly become obsolete. I mean, obviously, as per the previous article, but just seems a little weird to me. So I thought it was a little strange.
So Paladin. So there was a TV novelization of A Man Called Paladin.
Okay.
And it was a TV series, Have Gun Will Travel, that Paladin was in. And so this ran on TV from 1957 to 1963. Oh my gosh, I am that old.
I was about to say, is this old guy knowledge?
Well, yeah, when you hear Paladin, it's like, and they're working on this, so I'm like, Have Gun Will Travel. Perfect.
I'm pretty sure Rob mentioned this company before, but
Yes.
maybe I'm
Has he?
not
Yes, he has.
remembering the right thing.
Yep.
I think we talked about it briefly, and we were all surprised by the price of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seems a little strange. So, I mean, more power to Whitehall, Ohio, if you want to go this route. I mean, I would say there's definitely more affordable options. However, they are utilizing, they do say, they're using the Law Enforcement Trust Fund, which is designated for forfeited and confiscated money and must be used for public safety. And the sum is already in the fund, but I feel like you could probably get a little more bang for your buck if you maybe own the drones that you were utilizing and whatnot.
So maybe Paladin figured, they saw Whitehall and they figured, well, that's like Washington, D.C. for the UK, right? It's a location of, if you say Whitehall, it's like saying Parliament of the UK. So maybe they thought they had a gold-plated deal with the government of the United Kingdom. So yeah, bring it up to 49K.
Yeah. I mean, if people want to go this route, by all means, it's just not my jam, I think.
Yeah. That last paragraph there sounds interesting too, that their eventual policy will incorporate constitutional rights. So why don't you have a policy before you have the drone? And it's his understanding that everything done on the system is logged. It shouldn't just be, well, I think this is what happens. Like, you should know what is or isn't being logged.
Maybe before you commit to that, that contract. Just saying. And that $49,000, that's a year, so it's recurring $49,000. So just in case anybody was wondering.
Sweet gig.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so this last one is parody for me. I'm sure for Flying Mag.
Best racing drones.
It probably wasn't, and they've got a point, I guess, to some of this, but they wanted to. Here's their top options for racing drones and more. So
I'm curious about this.
So it says, editors note, the following article is not intended to be a ranking, but is only to serve as a list of possible options. As your saying goes, your mileage may vary. Yep. So here we go. Here's their breakdown. Quick look, best racing drone, iFlight Nazgul XL5. Best for value, Emax Tiny Hawk 2 Freestyle. Best for pocket drones, Beta FPV Cetus Pro. Best for all skill levels, the Apex VR70, and best for overall design, DJI Avata 2. So, number one. Okay, so we have a 5-inch drone at least, and iFlight is definitely a recognized name within FPV circles. So props to them on going there. And so they talk about it a little bit. Flights up to 18 minutes. Like, that's
depending
impressive.
on build. What kind of build is that?
Right. So let's see. We have an anti-spark filter, clear video output, DIY customization space. We also have the Emax Tiny Hawk 2 Freestyle. And, I mean, I like the Tiny Hawk
version. If it's a racing frame, why not use their race version?
Well,
Tiny Hawk is good, and
here,
I like that choice. But why the freestyle version? That's
because
just
it
stupid.
stands out as the best racing drone for value due to its optimized powers.
Right?
So, the Tiny Hawk race version is much better.
I mean, if you're flying, if you're in a race, and everybody's flying the Tiny Hawk 2 Freestyle, sure. But if you go to a drone race, you just be careful where you're taking it, I guess. We also have the beta FPV Cetus Pro. So again, if we're doing
this one I
the
can
micro
understand.
category, yeah,
This one I'm
um,
not opposed to.
yeah, I'm not opposed to this one. If you're in a definitely a tiny hawk or micro category racing here, the Apex VR70, flight time 15 to 18 minutes. That's also impressive. I wish all my drones flew for 15 to 18 minutes, but and then last but not least, the DJI Avata 2 stands out as the best racing drone for overall design due to its immersive flying experience.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
so
didn't win champs this year.
racing drone means FPV. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're going here. But I mean, let's be real here. If you've got the money to race the Avata 2, go for it.
But
Of
then
all the only one that I could support on this list is the beta FPV one. Other than that, none of them would make my list.
yeah, and we for those looking, for anyone who have gotten this far through this list, go to our Discord channel in general, and there are a lot of folks who really understand this, including the four of us. And while this is good comic relief, it's not very helpful.
No.
And if someone is looking for a beginner drone in racing, find your multi GP chapter. They'll be looking at Alex. You can recommend racers, but if you're looking for freestyle, our Discord channel can help you out. What's your thought on where to send
Well, I was
people?
going to add, if you want to race a true racing drone, then next week is the Global Championships, where the best racing pilots in the world will be flying the best racing drones in the world. And I would take a look at what they're setting up, because at the end of the race, there's going to be a poll done of all the pilots that says what gear they're using, and you can find the best gear
Now,
that the current pilots are using.
Where can you find
at
that?
the Global Championships?
Would that be
next
on
week.
multigp.com?
I don't know if that list will be on multigp.com, but that list will be at least on Facebook in the MultiGP Facebook.
Well,
Facebook.
we can follow up after the fact, and please let us. You can help us where that list is. I mean, that's useful.
Because we have the last year's lists too. Shame's posted each year.
Yeah, and those racing frames, you think, oh my gosh, they must be astronomically expensive. No, they're not. These are truly tested. I mean, these guys fly incredibly fast, Alex included, and they crash and they break frames. But these are tested, proven components that you want to get into racing. That's a good way to do it. Also, find your local multi-GP chapter, and chances are they'll have a tiny trainer spec race, and that's a great place to start. It's a good design. It's robust. It flies nice, and I fly it very slowly, but I do fly them, and it's good. So yeah, this is good comic relief, but there are a ton of sources, and one of the things we still see, we all help newcomers to the hobby. It's a recurring question: where can I start? And that's a question that gets asked and answered every day on Facebook groups, on our own forum, on our Discord channel, etc.
Got to give him some credit for trying.
Yeah.
It's hard to really write a very beginner article about FPV
Absolutely, it really is.
Because as soon as you start, you say something, and then you try to explain what does that acronym mean, then you're down in the weeds of all kinds of details.
Yeah.
That rabbit hole goes deep, but this is just again, we'll go to the top again, and we're just going to highlight this. As the saying goes, your mileage may vary with this. So
your many miles will very, very, very much vary.
Absolutely. So with that, guys, I'll hand it over to Dave.
Okay. So I just wanted to mention a couple things with respect to the, let's say it's the BVLOS NPRM. So the Beyond Visual Line of Sight Notice for Public Rulemaking. Alex, before we started the call, had some information it's better than a rumor that from the FAA has been saying that they will publish this NPRM December of this year. Looks like that might be January 2025. It's always good to specify the year when talking about these things. So the notice for public rulemaking is important. This is the next step in big regulations after remote ID. This to us is the next most important regulation. This will allow certainly Part 107 to fly beyond visual line of sight with restrictions. There will add a whole nother part, which will probably take years to go into effect. That's called Part 108. And as I had mentioned, happily, there will be a recreational category that will be added to the NPRM. We feel partly responsible for that. We're very proud of that. And we're hoping that we contributed. We're starting to put together a number of points that have to do with the equipment and have to do with operation, things that we've learned through our participation in the Beyond Visual Line of Sight Aviation Rulemaking Committee, tenderly known as the BV Loss ARC. And Dan and I participated in that over a 9-month period. We've got things in there that get rather detailed and gorpy and wonky, if you will. But we spent a lot of time on a subgroup that focused on operations under 500 feet. So what's the right equipment? What are the operations? What are the procedures? We'll be looking for things like that. What's the utilization of ADS-B receiving? And you remember that the FAA stipulated in remote ID that we will not use ADS-B broadcast, which is the squawk for crewed or manned aircraft. And we'll keep an eye on 135 and 122, so passenger and cargo UAS, because there's a heavy influence in the industry and in the regulation from all of the passenger and cargo companies of UAS and AAM, Advanced Air Mobility, so air taxis, autonomous and crewed, that will have applicability in this space, in this beyond visual line of sight. And it also ranged to things like VHF radio communication. So we are jotting this stuff down. We'll keep this in front of our community, and as we receive the NPRM, then we'll go detailed on what our comments are, and we will be guiding people, just like we did with a remote ID, on how to provide comments that are professional, productive, and also unique. You can't copy paste, does not work with a notice for public rulemaking. And that's all I had for the moment.
Okay. Alex, anything besides the multi-GP news from your side of the table over there?
All right. Don't really have much from multi-GP champs next week. I did want to mention that from talking about that last article there about the new to drone stuff, there was a comment that we had earlier about tips on how to crash less. And so I think that serves well of also answering that live here is also like one of the things that I recommend is and said he was using the sim. So I think using the sim is great. I keep using the sim, but I wouldn't really worry about crashing. If you crash, it's going to happen. I'd just keep going for it. But I'd also take a look at Mayan High's training tracks that she has in Velocidrone, if that's the sim that you're using. She also has some videos on it, and those are pretty good at trying to help you understand the fundamental movements of how you're moving the aircraft through the sky and going through those and around those different obstacles. And it's just a great way to practice your skills. And once you get more comfortable moving around obstacles, then you're going to likely crash less. Same thing, like you start off first, you just want to try to fly around without any obstacles, and you want to try to add an obstacle, because there's a huge difference when you're flying around with nothing and when you add an obstacle. Even just one flag there and you're trying to go around it, it adds, and it's a significant change. But practicing that and ignoring when you crash is really what's key. in my opinion, at least.
100%. And I will say the best piece of advice when I was first starting to fly, especially when I was first starting to try and go through gaps or even racing gates, was don't look at the gate. You generally will fly into what you're looking at. So look at
Target fixation.
Yep, target the gap, right? And when I'm trying to do precision things, I know some people do it, some people don't. I'm a fan of the crosshair in the OSD. That helps me maintain my focus. Other people, Alex started laughing because I know he doesn't. He's an expert level. But for me, it helps. But try and fix your target fixation, right? You want to see the obstacle, but you don't want to focus on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
That
for
was the
me,
thing that super helped me.
it was just sort of, well, I followed at the time. Joshua Bardwell had a very good introduction to flying series, probably a lot like my On Highs, where he talked about, well, first you learn how to hover, then you learn how to slowly fly forward, and you try to maintain altitude, and then you start turning left, and then you take everything one step at a time and work on it. But like at the beginning, you're thinking about every movement you're making, and you're really slow, and it's easy to crash. And eventually, you stop thinking and you just start doing, and then it just becomes a habit, and now you don't have to ever think anymore. It just sort of clicks and you can fly. And then the more time you get, just better and more precise and less crashing. But that first bit is just so frustrating because you're so slow, because you're thinking about every little move your thumbs have to make in order to make the drone do a certain thing. But eventually it does get better. That goes away, and you just sort of becomes a natural.
And I know Alex probably has the same idea, but think about it. And the other thing you have to get over is things are going to break, and the majority of the things that are going to break are going to be your propellers, right? Propellers are consumable in this hobby. Get over it, and think of your drone as not just something to go out and have fun with, but think of it like you would a screwdriver or a hammer, right? They're going to get dinged up, they're going to get banged up, they're going to get dirty. You know what? All that's just part of it. And you're going to replace some props, and maybe you're going to replace a motor here and there. But overall, treat it like a tool, and it's a tool to you learning how to fly. And if you stop worrying about dinging up your drone every 5 seconds, you're going to be able to focus more on the actual characteristics of flight, right? And the way you're flying and what you need to adjust and all those different things. So, I mean, here's a heap of advice from a lot of people who have been doing this for many, many years. And, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the best pilot. Alex definitely trumps me. Dan's probably better than me. But at the same time, we're all at a level where we feel comfortable, or we continue to push ourselves to the next level. And you only do that by taking risks and understanding the tool that you're flying with, right?
And I have the most experience. I have decades of RC model airplane, another 10 years of RC helicopters, 8 years of flying FPV drones, and I am by far the slowest in this group. And and so what Dan said about muscle memory, and I love Alex's comments, and get out there and practice, use the simulator, but also get some stick time, and don't if you my trick is I try to build two of the same drone so that this is an old RC plane trick. Make sure you've got a second plane with you so that you don't have a long
Or
yes,
four.
well, I'd say two. There are a couple more than two. But it's if you can do it, a second aircraft is a great idea, and have it be the identical aircraft with the same tune. That way, there you spend more time in the air, and you don't worry about I have to wait for parts on order and a motor coming or a replacement arm, and get out there and fly. And the lovely thing about electric quadcopters is gosh, we can get them up into the air in a minute or so, and you can get outside and fly. And this is, in stark contrast to a nitromethane powered RC model airplane, where you need almost about as much time for a round of golf. So it's a good thing. Get out there and fly and do it.
100%.
Yeah, I agree with what Josh and Dave said, and also going back to what Dan about having to think about every individual move. Another thing I see a lot, especially with younger kids trying, is they'll just go full stick deflections, and you got to really focus on just doing slow, gentle movements. You don't want to do anything abrupt, and you probably don't even need to go more than half stick when you're first learning how to fly. It's just those slow, gentle movements. And here's the other thing. If you do crash in the sim, you're doing just as well as the FAA did when I showed them how to use the sim. So, and if you start to crash less in the sim, you'll fly better than the FAA.
There you go. All right. Dan, anything from you, sir? To wrap
Nope,
us up?
all quiet for me this week.
All right. Sounds good, guys. All right. So there's lots of resources out there, guys. If you're just getting into the hobby or trying to figure out how to crash less, reach out to a lot of the people that are in the industry, in the hobby. Facebook's an excellent resource. Discord's an excellent resource, whether it's ours or somebody else's. We here are not so egotistical that we want you to be on ours all the time. There's a lot of great minds on ours. There's a lot of great minds across the world. Utilize your resources, ask those questions. There's a ton of people out there who love to help others. And that's what's great about this hobby. And but with that, I will say good night and thank you for joining us. Super appreciate it. And we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Have a great night, guys.
Thank you.
Fly so high, I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.